I'm Mabel Jong, and you're watching continuing coverage of the World Healthcare Congress here in Washington, D.C. And right now in our studio, we have Dave Chase, who is the co-founder of Health Rosetta Institute. And we're going to talk a little bit about the different things he is addressing here at this conference. Hi there, Dave. How are you?
Great.
Well, first, tell me the background of Health Rosetta Institute.
Yeah, basically, I was finding that there were employers who really deciphered the indecipherable, thus the Rosetta Stone reference. Just as Egyptian hieroglyphics were decoded by the Rosetta Stone, these employers were spending 20, 30, 55% less on healthcare with actually superior benefits. And so I thought, a lot of people think healthcare is indecipherable. Well, these people have decoded it, and thus the Health Rosetta essentially captures these proven approaches that are kind of a blueprint for what employers ought to do.
You're really helping employers, it sounds like, wade through some very, very complicated stuff. And we talked a little bit about fiduciary responsibility.
Yep.
That's a big one. Tell me what your role is in that, on that topic.
Yeah, well, just a little backdrop. The RISA is the regulatory framework for retirement benefits and health benefits. It's been around since the first month of the Ford administration. It puts this fiduciary duty on employers because they're stewarding the employees' money. And historically, that's been applied very carefully on retirement benefits. If you're not properly managing the employees' retirement funds, there have been suits that have gone all the way to the Supreme Court, and employees as a class have won unanimously against the employer if they didn't properly manage it. Historically, that hasn't been applied on healthcare because it was looked at as the employer's money, therefore they weren't stewarding a third party. You could debate that point, I would, but the reality is today the dollars are commingled. It's a 70-30 employee split on health benefits. In the last 6 months, we've passed the 50% threshold for people having over $1,000 deductible. So clearly it's the employee's money. And I joke that on the retirement benefits, if you put your employee's money into Uncle Bubba's investment fund that's got high fees, terrible returns, and there's kickbacks to the broker, you will get sued, and that's what's happened. Well, we're kind of doing Uncle Bubba's health plan because we know PwC and Institute of Medicine will say a third to a half of what we spend adds no value or is waste. And so there's a high standard that's going to be applied that hasn't been applied historically.
Well, why does that very dire situation continue?
I think it's just we've reached a breaking point. There was, frankly, the presidential election is a good manifestation of that. If you look at the populist movement that really drove the Bernie and Trump phenomena, it's because the middle class has been in a 20-year-long economic depression where wages have been suppressed. So that reality is hitting people, and so there's a few cases in the works that are I've learned of that I expect we'll see in the news in the coming weeks that really show the level of essentially dereliction of duty. For example, massive levels of fraudulent claims being paid but apparently nobody's been carefully watching.
Is it also because there are stakeholders in the business that continue maintaining the status quo, and it's too much work to figure out how to change it? Yeah,
well, there's 3 trillion reasons to protect the status quo. There's no doubt, and unfortunately, given that healthcare is usually the second biggest cost for employers, they haven't resourced it like they do other important things with the level of resource, the level of expertise, and consequently, they've kind of just passed off the responsibility and essentially given a blank check to much of the industry. And not all employers have done that, but most have.
Okay, so is a solution credentialing certain people that have a real stake in keeping things the way they are?
Yeah, because if you have this high standard, you want to create a safe harbor for employers. And by having a credential for the benefits consultant who plays a really vital role, they have an outsized role in that decision. There are a subset, a fairly small subset, less than 5%, that have done just an incredible job and worth their weight in gold. Well, these people should be the future. And if you look at an analogy of what we're driving is, you may remember stockbrokers that were around 20, 30 years ago. Largely they went the way of the dodo bird because incentives weren't aligned, there wasn't proper disclosure. Well, today's benefits brokers are the stockbrokers of 20 or 30 years ago. And so the smart stockbrokers reinvented themselves as financial and wealth advisors. Things are much better there. That's really what we're trying to drive.
Okay, so, but you say that really there's just less than 5% who are the very qualified and the very capable.
And disclose, they have true
right.
disclosure. I mean, some will say they have disclosure and they'll disclose some, but there's a lot of undisclosed things that might not be account specific overrides and bonuses that provide incredible incentives for the benefits consultant or broker to not have their clients switch. And one way to look at it is the industry, the benefits consulting industry and benefits broker industry really pitches themselves as a buyer's agent, but really they're largely compensated as a seller's agent.
Okay.
And so that's where there's not proper disclosure in the way there ought to be.
So will you find that if there is a call for more credentialing of the industry and oversight, do you think there will be resistance to this? I mean, quite a bit of resistance.
Sure, there's always resistance to any change, but there's also a lot of momentum and win. And as employers awaken where there's not only a fiduciary duty, but there's actually a fiduciary opportunity. I mean, if you look at corporations, they've gone through virtually every area of their business, whether it's supply chain or sales and marketing. They've applied technology and applied approaches that have proven themselves to work very well. Now they have something, maybe 20% of their overall budget. This is kind of the final frontier. And there's literally large multinational employers just implementing some basic but smart programs that has had a positive EBITDA impact, profit impact on the company overall. So it's driving market capitalization of like 5%. And there's not that many things that can drive 5% profitability. Healthcare is that remaining area.
This is your first time at this meeting, Dave?
It is, yeah.
Tell me how it's going so far.
Great. I mean, there was a pre-conference session with a lot of forward-looking employers, a lot of even more forward-looking benefits consultants and others, kind of partners of theirs. So that was great. A lot of vibrant discussion and how do we kind of all sort of create a hive mind, sort of to collectively get smarter and say, what are the areas we can go after? And this morning, one of I think just about the first session, there was the group that included a number of policymaker and financial leaders, and it was interesting, even though it wasn't the topic, they brought up how most Americans, if you're not poor or if you're not old, you get your benefits through work. And so that might be a third or so of Americans. I think it's about 150 million Americans get their, so I guess more than a third, get their health benefits through work, but it's probably 3/4 of the industry profits. Right. And so there's a real opportunity and recognition that if we don't change that, you really can't restore the American dream that's frankly been tarnished by healthcare costs.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you, Dave, for your time today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And I'm Mabel Jong. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more content on its way.